Welcome to your first lecture on anatomy. So we are going to go through each joint in Bob's body on separate videos. If you haven't guessed already, we're starting with ankle, hence Bob's foot in my hand. So the various bits of anatomy we're going to look at are things like the bones, the bony landmarks, helpful in finding your muscles and muscle attachments, ligaments, other soft tissues of importance, the joints and various bits and pieces. So hopefully you get a good understanding of each of the joints and the soft tissues associated with it. This will all help to make you a better practitioner and be able to locate things like your muscles far more simply. So let's start with Bob and his bones, shall we? So this is Bob's ankle, and the bones associated with it are the fibula down the outside here and the tibia. You then have the calcaneus, which is your ankle bone, and your talus in here. You then have your cuboid and your cuneiforms and your navicular. So all these bones here make up the tarsals, which are your ankle bones. So that's all your ankle bones, not too many. Each of these have all got individual joints, but we won't be worrying about those when we get to joints shortly. Next you have your metatarsals, which are kind of the flat of the foot, and you have 5 of those. You then have at the end here your phalanges, so there's 3 on each of the toes, and then the big toe only has the 2. So that's all the bones associated with the ankle. Okay, so now we've got the bones, we need to have a look at some bony landmarks, and with the ankle we haven't really got very many that you need to know. So you've got the lateral malleolus and the, if I can get Bob's leg around, medial malleolus, and basically all they are is the end of the tib and fib. The other thing you need to know is the talar dome under here. And that's all really you need to know for your bony landmarks. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the joints of the ankle. There is a lot of joints within the foot, so we're not going to go through those because there really is a lot, obviously between every phalange, between the phalanges and the metatarsals, between the metatarsal and the tarsals, and between all the tarsals. So we could be here all day. The ones we're really interested in are the ankle joints, and I say joints because there is 2, not 1. So a lot of people think the ankle can move in a circular motion, but it doesn't. It's 2 different joints creating 2 different sets of movements. So the first one at the top here is a hinge joint, and that is the talocrural joint. And that allows plantar and dorsiflexion of the foot. So that movement, you're up and down. Bob doesn't do it very well, unfortunately. The other one is the subtalar joint, and that's down in here, and that allows inversion and eversion. So that's the sideways movements. And that's what makes it feel like that your ankle can do a circular motion. And that's a gliding joint. So the top one's a hinge joint, and that's between the malleolus of the fib and the tib and the talus, and that's a hinge joint. And the other one is a gliding joint, and that's below the talus bone. So that's the 2 major joints of your ankle. So next we're going to have a little look at ligaments. We've done bony landmarks and bones. So there are loads of ligaments in the foot and ankle, but we're only going to have a little look at a couple of them. So first of all, on the lateral border we have 2 to consider. We have the talofibula, so it tells you exactly where it goes to and from the talus onto the fibula, so that's there. And then you have the calcaneofibula, so again tells you exactly where it goes, and it goes there. So that helps to limit eversion movements, the turning of the ankle, which is quite a common problem. Then if I can get Bob to turn his leg around for me. On the medial border we have the deltoid ligament, so it has 3 heads. So it comes off of the bottom of the tib at the malleolus, and it goes to the navicular, the talus and the calcaneus, and it just helps to stabilise against eversion. Next we're just going to have a little look at the arches of the foot. So there's actually 3 arches of the foot. You've got the longitudinal lateral arch, the longitudinal medial arch, and then you have a transverse arch that goes across this way. And this is created by the bones of the foot and then supported by the plantar fascia that comes underneath. So the medial arch is the one that will often collapse when people are flat-footed. Next we're going to have a look at a couple of bursas. So we're only interested in two on this course. There is quite a lot in the foot and ankle. There's quite a lot through a lot of the jointy areas. The bursa is a synovial fluid sac which helps to protect soft tissue structures rubbing against bone. So where tendons and ligaments or even muscles come across quite a sharp point of bone, there will probably be a bursa there to protect it. So the two we're looking at is the retrocalcaneal bursa, which is between the Achilles tendon or the calcaneal tendon and the calcaneus, so here. The other one is the subcutaneous calcaneal bursa, so that's between the skin and the Achilles. So that's the two bursas associated there. The other thing to talk about while we're doing odd random bits of anatomy is the retinacular. So it's a fibrous strap. There are several of them in the body, but they go across places like the ankle, whereas if it wasn't there, the tendons of the muscle would just go straight across. So it helps to bind the tendons in, but also what it does is it gives them something to lever against. So it gives the muscle something to work against to be able to function more effectively. So you have some that come across here, and there's also some in the wrist, and it just helps to keep the tendons in place. So just before we move on to muscles, a couple of structures to talk about. So one is the interosseous membrane, which is a membrane that runs between the tib and the fib, and this just helps to keep them in line when they rotate. It's also a muscle attachment site. The other thing is that the lower leg is broken into 4 compartments. So you have an anterior compartment, a lateral compartment, and a deep and a superficial posterior compartment. And this is divided up by an inelastic fascial soft tissue that creates these compartments, and the muscles are sort of broken down into them. And there is a condition called compartment syndrome where the muscle becomes too enlarged for that space, and it can cause quite a bit of discomfort and pain for people, so that's just one to consider. So just a brief run through of the muscles. Obviously you've done muscles before, and there are videos for the muscles if you want to recap them, and it is important that you understand them, but just a bit of a reminder. So we have the tibialis anterior, and underneath that we'll have the extensor digitorum longus and the extensor digitorum brevis. On the lateral edge here we will have the perineal, so peroneus longus, brevis and tertus. In the back we will have things like the flexor digitorum longus and the flexor hallucis longus. We will have tibialis posterior, gastrocnemius, soleus, plantaris. So that's most of the muscles associated with the lower leg. There is a full list in your manual, and don't forget you've got your origins and insertions from your level 3 plus the videos to work with. So now that you've gone through the anatomy, you should be able to, along with the aid of your manual and additional resources, be able to complete the associated quiz.